And we're going to start off this week by apologizing to everyone listening for at the end of that really cool music and countdown, you have to see us and you have to listen to us. But you know what? You tuned in, watching, listening, whatever, so it's kind of on you. I don't feel bad for you. I blame you. You did it. You asked for this, so we're going to give it to you on another episode. Here today on a Friday, a Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion Friday edition of Dirt to Dust presented by Outlaw Offroad. I know we are filming this, Caleb, before kind of the festivities go and get underway. I am about to, very, very short distance from here, the 4xe is getting some parts tossed back on it. Just landed back in North Carolina last week from an extended stay, about 3 months that it stayed at Next Venture Motorsports out in Colorado. Got done with my Moab, left it there. Dan Four out there decided to throw the catalog at good old 4xe Elon and just ran out of time, didn't get some stuff coded and everything. It came back. I posted a couple of pictures online. A lot of aluminum. Which is great. Nice lightweight aluminum. We know it's strong. It's on 46.9. A lot of those parts are on 46.99, so no strength issues, but had to get everything pulled off, got everything painted, mostly black and some 4xe blue. That's all going back on. I was just up there a little bit ago. Fender liners were back in, little blue accents, that's done. We were having a check engine light issue and a limp mode issue where we thought we were having an issue with a tone ring on a axle shaft.
Okay.
So, and it got worse after it got back from Colorado. It was drivable before. It actually did it to me twice. And anytime it would get above 55 miles an hour, it'd start looking for that. And it would throw it into limp mode. I'd have to pull over, use the taser, reset, go back and do it again. Well, when we pulled the axle shafts out, the left one was twisted. Twisted. So
Were those
sure
factory
there's some
axle
things.
shafts?
I'm sure there's some. No, they were aftermarket. They were a brand that I had. I won't go into the brand, but it was a brand I was not wanting to use for quite some time. And that brand assured me they had corrected their problems. So being the idiot that I am, was like, okay, if you think your problems are fixed and you want to sell through Outlaw Offroad again, put a set in my Jeep. I'll take it to Moab. If they survive, we can talk. They didn't survive. They did not survive.
Well.
But in fairness to me, I was having check engine light issues and not limp mode, but I was having that issue before we hit the first trail. It went into limp mode at the bottom of the first hill on Hell's Revenge on our shakedown run.
Ooh.
And I had to figure out that as long as we kept it in 4 low, I never had any problems. But once it got to that speed on the highway and it started really looking for that and needing that ABS sensor, it was just freaking out. We did find a couple of chips and a couple of teeth on the tone wheel. I still think the overall issue on the right rear was there was an improper press depth on the tone ring. So for anybody who doesn't know, there's a tone ring that's pressed onto the axle. And it's just basically little teeth. And a sensor plugs in and sits, half a millimeter away from it, and it reads those teeth magnetically, and that forms. The faster it sees teeth going, the faster it knows you're going. The slower it sees it, and it compares all that to a computer table and knows how fast you're going. When it misses teeth or does all that, it gives what's called implausible data. Computer freaks out and does computer freaking out things. So we got some brand new axle shafts from Revolution Gear and Axle. Great company there. They are actually a sponsor of Trail Days. So they stepped up. I called them this weekend. I was like, guys, we got a problem. I got to leave for Jeep Invasion, and I can't drive this thing on I-40. Like, I'm going to have to I was like, am I going to have to trailer this thing and just drive slow, like for Jeep Invasion? And credit to Revolution. They were like, say no more. Don't even worry about it. We got you. They got me a set of axle shafts out. They have currently we finished pressing in the studs and tack welding them. Because people, when you have studs, you have to put in axle shafts, tack weld the back of them. Yeah. For the love of the Lord, tack weld. That goes a long way. So Trent up there at the shop, he was tack welding them in. They're in. They're on. Wheels are back on. The only thing left before I came down here to film was just bolting up the bumpers. Winch tray was already back on. Tow hooks were back on. They were putting the front bumper skin back on. So I should be leaving for Jeep Invasion prior to sunrise tomorrow morning. Of course, by the time everybody watches this, it'll be well underway. The festivities will be. So if you're listening or watching and you're a Jeep individual, you're probably watching from Jeep Invasion. And we're going to give you some cool 1 or 2 things to do outlaw related while you're at Jeep Invasion. As soon as we get in to this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Jeep Invasion. A couple other events. We had one just this past week that canceled, unfortunately. Talk a little bit about some other events, some trail days stuff. We're going to do our picks again. I don't know if it's actually going to be a top 3, but our picks, Doug and Caleb's picks again, see if we agree or disagree there. And then we are going to do a little bit of an extended mailbag. I think we got 5, maybe 4 questions, and then a little hate today. We're going to, we love to address. We love to address the haterade. And according to the haterade, I am a politician, but I guess not one that should run for office, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I have no desire there. So we'll get into all of that. But without further ado, let's get into the episode.
When other people see dirt, you see glory. And when you see a vehicle for the first time, your first thought is not how pretty it is, but how much abuse can it take. This is Dirt to Dust, presented by Outlaw Offroad. If it's anything off-road and dirty, we probably like it, and we're probably talking about it. You'll get industry info, tech talk, and interviews with the biggest and best in the industry. Let's do it. This is Dirt to Dust. And now your hosts, Doug Langford and Caleb Forbes.
We've seen that intro like 100 times now, and one of my favorite shots that I put in there is still 4629 launching off the start line of the new livery. The new white and red. Yeah.
I promise it's faster than the camera looks like. Cause
it's still one of my favorite shots, though. Just such a cool shot.
There was a little behind the scenes. Everybody thinks, and you kind of do, everybody thinks when you're in a race car and you're at the start finish line, like it's super tense and everybody's like, stomachs and knots and all that. And there is a little bit of that. Like, I think before you kind of get to it, I think for me, when I get like 3 cars back, it kind of changes. And mine's like this thing, like an hour before the race, it's all jokes. We're kind of making light of it. There's probably a little bit of using humor to mask the outright, fear of what's going to happen. I don't know if fear is the right word, but uncertainty for sure.
Yeah.
But then when you get on the line, you start, if you got a good co-driver relationship, you start cutting jokes and whatnot. And that one the joke there was if I could put it on 2 wheels or not. And and in that case, that was KOH. So we were in the car discussing what we were going to do. And our decision was to let John Williams, who was in the Ford Performance School Bronco, on our inside. We were going to let him go. We wanted to let him go. We knew that some people were getting tires taken out and all that. And we wanted to have him kind of clear our path for us all the way to Turkey Claw. It worked out because we didn't blow any tires, but it also didn't work out because we were faster than him. And I was like, get out of the way, which is the second race in a row that I was yelling at John Williams' rear bumper to get out of my way because I did the same thing in Arizona last year.
Just give him a little love tap.
He ended up moving. Yeah, it was. I don't know what it. I just need to stop following John. I need to do that. Sorry, John. So anyway, I digress. So we did say this is the Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion kind of episode because that's what's going on right now. We release these episodes on Friday. This would be day 2 of the show. It started yesterday, Thursday, goes today, kind of when business picks up, and then of course tomorrow. In my years there, Friday afternoon is probably the second busiest. Like Friday right before and right after lunch.
Yeah.
I feel like it starts dying down about 2:30, 3 o'clock. Sometimes it'll go to 3:30. And then Saturday, there for a couple hours, just all hell breaks loose.
Oh, yeah.
I am interested, though, to see how it is this year because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on events so far this year about, attendance is pretty good or even up, but sales from vendors is down.
Yeah, I've heard the same.
People are going to events, but they're not spending money. I don't know that to be true or not. I've heard that from some vendors. When we as Outlaw go to events, we don't really sell stuff. We're just there to talk to people and brand recognition and all that. But I do know some of the brands that actually make their profit lighting companies, accessory companies, that kind of stuff. They have said that sales are down, even though attendance is pretty. I think most of them are about the same. Mm-hmm. But I also talked to manufacturers and whatnot who have all complained, other than maybe one or two, that they are, we're down this year. And the economy's And you always get in that kind of lull right before an election, too, of like everybody's kind of holding on, going like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So they hold on. When they say, what's going to happen, they kind of hold on to that money, too. So
yeah. Well, and also something that I've seen, especially this year, this year was just like, I noticed it more than any other year in the past. Much more frequent sales throughout the year from these manufacturers.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I want to say like you almost only got really good deals at shows. And now with the increase increase of sales going throughout the year, people are like, oh, well, I'm not worried about getting that 10% off now. I'll wait a couple weeks and wait till Labor Day, or I'll wait till something else and score 15 off or 20 off for, Black Friday, and I'll get 25 off. Mm-hmm. So that's always the conundrum there. But yeah, I would love to see some more data on that event and see how attendance is this year versus sales. I know we've taken a step back to kind of reformat our marketing position with Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion. So it'd be interesting to know whether, we want to jump back in and have a spot inside and show off some rigs, or we just want to be very selective and put our rigs in with, work with other companies and put our rigs in their booths. It'd be interesting to kind of do a little study on that.
Mm-hmm. No, you got to think, because when you're in because we didn't have a booth last year, and when it came up to looking at this year, we were like, man, because we went last year and we went with a marketing plan.
Yeah,
we did the sponsorship of the after party, and we said we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And we had like 6 or 7 rigs there, and we're going to put the race car here, we're going to put the Hellcat here, we're going to do this, we're going to do the Cades Cove, and from a marketing standpoint, it was an awesome year for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started talking about this year, and I don't know. I need to look at how Bronco Stampede did. I did see a little bit more posting out of it this year, although I didn't see as many vendors in the pictures that I saw. The problem, though, with Jeep Invasion, it's twofold. I've done a booth inside and I've done a booth outside as a shop. The booth outside, you can bring your Jeep in and out every day. Mm-hmm. So you can bring your Jeep in the morning, you can park it, you can do the show, then you can go out. You can go to the parties, you can go to Hard Rock, you can go to Quaker Steak, you can do all that stuff. And then you just come back in the morning. You can wash it if you want to. You can do whatever you want. The negative for that is it is freaking hot. Now, earlier this week, weather was freaking beautiful. It was like 70, 75 degrees. I'm like, oh, this is great. Now you're getting into the upper 80s for, today and tomorrow. It's right back to what it normally is. Granted, it's not the 90s, but the upper 80s with some decent humidity. Luckily, humidity is a little bit lower this year. It's still hot, and you're in the sun. You don't really – it's kind of sucks being out there, and they moved – where the outside vendors used to be now versus where they were a couple years ago. But again, you get to drive your Jeep in on every day. Being inside, you definitely get the benefit of more foot traffic. That's where the food's at. That's where that's where more vendors are there. The big boys are in there. Outlaw's always been in there. We did have a auxiliary booth outside one year just where we were doing the drawing sign up, where we had like one Jeep and a 10x10 tent out there, and we put like one person out there. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you go in there, you can't move the vehicle.
Right.
So if you put 3 or 4 vehicles in a booth, which we would need to do as a shop, now that's 3 or 4 vehicles you can't take to Cades Cove. You can't take to the parties, all that.
Now you lose a lot of marketing ability.
You lose a lot of marketing. And then strolling around last year, I saw the people that were selling stuff were getting some foot traffic. The people that weren't selling stuff were not seeing as much foot traffic. And I've seen that in years past when we had a booth. You get those spikes in people, and then they kind of drop off. But you're just there to talk to people. You see some people there, make some connection, do some networking, and it's worth it from that standpoint. Because honestly, I mean, the organizers aren't killing it. They're not overcharging on booths, in my opinion. I think they're charging fair amounts for the booths, so it's worth it for most companies just go there and hang out. But 5 years ago, there wasn't as many shops there. Now, like every mom and pop shop is there. It's hard to stand out. So when you're looking at a marketing perspective, it's the same thing we talked about with Mob Moab. When you go to EJS, it's hard to stick out from a marketing standpoint. Everybody's posting from EJS. Same thing from Jeep Invasion. So I think, I like going, but it's hard to stand out just saying, well, I'm going to stroke a check for a booth and go to the booth and do nothing else. I think you got to diversify the exposure, and that's what we did last year, and we're doing it to a certain extent this year, and then we'll see how we move going forward. But at the end of the day, it's a huge event. and it ain't going anywhere. So you got to figure out how to work within the confines of that for your brand, whether you're a manufacturer and you're going there to sell stuff, whether you're a dealer and you're going there to sell stuff, whether you're shopping, whatever you're doing, because it ain't going anywhere. And again, like I said, it's a huge event. So it's kind of like anybody who's anybody is there. So I'm going this year for a couple days, but I'll be heading out here tomorrow, Saturday. Got some stuff I got to do back in North Carolina, but there is a bunch of outlaws hanging around throughout the weekend. Some coming in early, some coming in late, and then several staying from start to finish. So we'll see how it does. We'll be out there at the party tonight. I'll be out there at the party tonight at Quaker Steak and Lube hanging out. I know we got a lot of people going to Hard Rock tomorrow night, and a lot of outlaws going out to Quaker tonight. So we'll see how it goes. I hope it's huge. I hope it's awesome. I hope it's not. I hope it bucks the trend of what I've heard about other events this year. And then, of course, in other event news, next weekend we've got another event coming up, the annual event down in Georgia. Is it Georgia?
Yeah, right? Jasper, Georgia. Mm-hmm.
That's Sheriff's, right? Sheriff's Jeep Fest?
Sheriff's Jeep Fest. And that's a good one, especially it's got a lot of local wheeling around there. Excuse me. It's got some wheeling. It's got a really cool obstacle course. They seem to be throwing more and more rocks at it every single year. Why not? That's definitely more of a, I don't want to say more of a wheeling event, but it's definitely got more wheeling involved. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. To the point where I've heard multiple vendors say, I don't really care about having a booth, but I love going down there to wheel and just hang out for the weekend.
Yep. Yeah, I think Ryan goes down there from Atlanta, takes Reaper.
Yeah.
And just hangs out, has a good time, does the party, and throws Reaper at some rocks.
Yeah. And Reaper loves the rocks. So.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it does. I don't hate on that. I do not hate on that. But that's always, I think it's pretty much every year. It's the weekend right after. Because all the vendors from around the country, they're already here.
Yep.
So they go a few hours down the road and they're there at Sheriff's. It makes a whole lot of sense. I totally get it. It's not like, you're at EJS and now you got to come all the way across the country for Jeep Beach. And then you got to hang out for 3 weeks before Florida Jeep Jam. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a great event. I have not made it there simply because generally this is the time of year where it's Jeep Invasion, Crandon. Jeep Invasion, Crandon. I am not racing Crandon this year for some marketing reasons. There's, Ultra 4s. That thing's a mess. So we'll see. We did pick up, or we are going to race that endurance race that outside of Ultra 4 in December in Texas, but we'll see. I have Miles Hasselquist actually texted me today. He's kind of the announcer for Ultra 4. He goes, "Are you racing Crandon?" I was like, "Nah, we'll see about Oklahoma. That's nationals." But Crandon's not a points race now. It was a race, and then it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't going to happen at all, and then everybody was thinking, well, maybe it's just 4,400s. So apparently it is happening now. It is going to be a mixed field again, 45, 46, 48, which is the reason about half the 4,600 guys I know aren't going because they get run over by 44s and 48s. So there's not going to be much of a 4,600 field. I think Lauren said he's not going if there's not some competitors going. So I don't think Lauren's going. I don't think Bailey's going. I'm not going. So we'll see. It's pretty much going to be focused on 45s and 48s, which the coverage was last year anyway, even though we were smoking 75% of their field. So that's not a thing. But we do have the Davis, Oklahoma coming up in October. Yeah. So this year I will not be at Crandon for Labor Day. I think I'm going to be at home, like building some furniture for my son's room or something like that. So super duper fun. So
not a bad.
But plan. We will have a slight presence down there. I think Ryan's going and taking Reaper, so that'll be cool.
Yeah. And then in other news, also regarding events, I was a little heartbroken to hear this. I was really looking forward to going and potentially having the LJ there too. But we got word this week that Jeeptastic is canceled. Yep, unfortunately.
Yep, Jeeptastic, and I think that was a combination of things too. Their marketing had really fallen off. Mm-hmm. They had the organizer of that event had some really, really heavy family stuff going on.
Yeah.
And just wasn't able to commit to marketing the event and getting it organized. They were having to switch venues because the venue they've been at for a couple of years was being sold by the owner. So they couldn't have the venue. They couldn't have the event there. They moved it to a place that I thought was going to be an awesome place. I hope they try to bring it back there next year. We'll see. I don't know. Generally, if you cancel an event like this, it's going to be really, really hard to bring back, and I hate that. But we'll see. But yeah, Jeeptastic is canceled, unfortunately. And we will wait with fingers crossed for 2025 and see if they bring that back. An event that is not canceled, Outlaw Offroad Trail Days coming up. Somebody said it. I was
Coming
in the
up
shop, and a
right
customer
very
came in
soon.
and goes, "Hey man, you ready for Trail Days?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Dude, it's like 3 weeks." I was like, "Shut up, man."
Yeah.
He goes, "No, seriously, it's 3 weeks." Like, son of a. I was like, "Man, I better make the trail list." I mean, I've got half the trail list in my head already, and we kind of joked about it. I was like, "Man, it's Windrock. I can make the trail list in 5 minutes out of my head. It's Windrock. That for a year, that was my second home in Reaper, so we'll be ready for that." I've noticed some of those spots. I think about half the spots we talked about last week are gone now. I noticed several signups on there this week. So yeah, I mean, I think there's still a few spots. Check the website, theoutlawоffroad.com/trail days. I think beginner may be done, and advanced may even be done, but I think there's some intermediate spots left. So just check.
I'll as soon as those spots close up, I will close those down, and you won't be able to register for them anymore.
Yeah,
but I know
close.
it's
If they're not
incredibly
already.
close.
Yeah, if they're not already. So I would actually like it to not be a full event. I know we set the number really high. Like, man, if we get this many people, we can handle it. I'd rather not.
Yeah.
So
It would make our life a lot easier.
I would love, yeah, we could deal with 80 people if we had to, but I would love it to be like high 50s to low 60s. I think would be perfect. I think that would
and I think
great.
we're right in
We're
mid
there,
50s
yeah.
right now.
So if nobody else signs up, I think I'd be happy. But we'll see. We've got the trail leaders to do it, or trail leaders / trail bros. Hey, trail bro. So we can do that. I just I think it'd be cooler to be able to meet more people, talk with more people, smaller groups on the trail. I'm here for that. So hopefully that's what happens. But that one is definitely not canceling. As a matter of fact, I think as of last check, every company sponsor is going to have a rig there.
That's
every
awesome.
single one of them. Yeah, I think so. I think Kyle even from Redeemed is trying to be there. I'm talking to Matt while I'm here at Jeep Invasion about who's coming for them. I know there is Adam is bringing the LJ from Rock Crawler. Dan from Next Venture will not be here, but he is leaving one of the Jeeps behind. And I think Tyler is going to fly back out, grab little Willie, and come wheeling. So that's going to be cool. So yeah, that's going to be pretty freaking awesome. So looking forward to that. So you guys be on the lookout for that. We did start the Facebook group for the attendees. We got some details going out there. I think that's it that we got on Trail Days for now. We don't have to say it here. We've already got the Facebook group. We got the webpage up. So we are getting close now. We're right on the cusp of turning into September. September means October's right around the corner. In October, one of my favorite events of the year, Myrtle Beach Jeep Jam, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Love that. Love that event. We go there every year.
Growing.
We go big every year.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's getting, I know huger's not a word, but every year it seems like it gets huger.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It's growing year over year for sure. I'm gonna try my best to be there. It would be awesome if the LJ's done and I have it there by then. But I've also got a wedding to attend in Pigeon Forge, like that like a couple days after that. So I might be driving from Myrtle Beach straight to Pigeon Forge, but we'll see what happens.
Of a drive, man.
Nah, it's like 6 hours. It's not horrible.
Come over to Asheville, hit 26, boogie all the way. It's like a 4.5 hour drive. You're fine. Quit complaining. You're fine.
Yeah.
You go right through the low country, right through the upstate of South Carolina. It's not a bad drive. Drive through. Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
But that's a great event, and we'll be back at Crooked Hammock again this year. They were awesome last year. Let us set up our tent out there. They had the band. We were doing wings and the beers, and we had a couple Jeeps out there. I think we had the Hemi Gladiator out there and the Hellcat. No idea what we'll have out this year. Who knows? So that's pretty cool. I just love that event. It's at the beach. It's right about that time of year where accommodations aren't expensive. The weather's usually low 80s.
Yeah, it's
the
super
humidity
comfortable.
Is not what it is like right now. It's not like 85 with 95% humidity. It's more like 80 to 85 with like 60 to 70% humidity, which may seem like a lot to you desert people, but out here in the Southeast, it's pretty freaking awesome in the fall.
That's pretty tame.
It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. And a lot of people go through there. It is a vendor show. They have the obstacle course, which is cool, but it is first and foremost a vendor show. It is the Myrtle Beach version of Jeep Invasion, and they do the beach crawl. They get some special permission for that. I just think Chris, the organizer there, just does an outstanding job at listening to vendors too and changing it every year a little bit to make it better and better and better. So I can't wait to see what he's got this year. We're going to have our new booth design out there, our new rectangle design versus our old rectangle design. You guys want to see what I'm talking about? Go to Myrtle Beach Jeep Jam. So, and then on other events, we do have some Gears and Beers coming again, some Outlaw Gears and Beers. We just had one in Charlotte.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We've got another one, which is probably going to be rescheduled because by the schedule, that would be the Friday of Trail Days. So my guess is that Charlotte will probably just do what they did this past month and just reschedule that 1 week into the future. And then Nashville has theirs coming up, Nashville, Tennessee, the 9th. Is that right? The 9th of September, I think?
I would say 9th of September. It's usually, I want to say the second Monday of each month. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but if that's the 9th,
that's the 9th.
Then that would be it. And that's at Tailgate Brewery in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, so just south of the shop. Looks like that one's starting to grow too. Candace sent me a few videos of this past month, and there were several vehicles, a couple dozen, a good mix of Jeeps, Broncos, Toyotas, which is what I kind of envisioned this event to be on a monthly basis. Is not just Jeeps, but a little bit of everything, some Overlanders, anyone who's got like a flex ramp to come out and bring the flex ramp out, let people test it out, test their vehicles out. Charlotte, that's been a hit. People love getting on the flex ramp. And shout out to Primal Brewery in Belmont, because those guys have been really awesome to us, and they just kind of let us take over their entire parking lot.
Yeah, they do. What a great job they do.
Especially on a Friday.
I was there for this last one, and they just, they got servers out on the patio going to get food, going to get drinks. It's freaking amazing. They do such a good job. Really, really good job. I don't know that you can't really ask much more from a venue for what we need for a Gears and Beers Outlaw Offroad event than what Primal Brewing in Belmont, North Carolina gives us. So, and I did talk to Gerald down in Huntsville. They have a new location. I got a video of it. It's freaking sweet. I don't have a date. I know it'll be in September. I don't have a date yet, but he sent me a video of that being like, hey, let's move it here. And it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty sweet place. I don't know the name of it. I don't live down there. But the video and the pictures that I saw, it's pretty freaking sweet.
The location there, I can't off the top of my head remember which brewery it is.
Yeah,
but he was looking at changing it from a Saturday night event to either a Thursday or Friday night event, which I think personally will gain a lot more attention, especially with that location being as cool as it is. Be on the lookout from Outlaw Offroad Huntsville social media. As soon as I have that information, I will be sure to update everyone. And we're going to get it kicked off again. Fall is the best time to do Gears and Beers. It's not too hot. I would love to do like a Jeeptoberfest themed Gears and Beers. That would be pretty cool. I know some of the brewers that we're talking about actually have special Oktoberfest brews. So it'd be cool to kind of help them launch their seasonal brew with a Jeep event, which would be super cool. But Jeeptoberfest would be pretty fun.
That's a good one.
See me in some.
That's pretty sweet. I like that name, Jeeptoberfest.
Got to wear what are the shorts and the high socks?
The Lederhosen.
Lederhosen,
eh? Lederhosen.
Yeah, we're gonna have to show up in Outlaw Lederhosen.
Jeez. Somebody stop this, man. All right, jeez. I think that's all we got on events. We covered all that.
Which is a lot. Yeah.
It's that time of year. And we'll probably have even more next week once I look back at the schedule again and see what we've got coming up. It's a great, spring is heavy on events. Fall is heavy on events. And we're only about, we're 30 days away now from fall?
Yeah.
And especially in the South, we've got a good 90 days left of, good weather, doesn't get cold, depending on what you think is cold. Sometimes we get great wheeling weather well into December here. So, and even event weather at least until Thanksgiving. So, maybe I ought to look into that Jeeptoberfest. That'd be pretty cool. So now let's move on. Moving on to our next little segment today is our top blanks, our preferred blah blah blanks. Talk to me. Right. What do you got for us? What are we going to be talking about today? A little bit on what we like and maybe what we don't like, or our top threes or top ones or top twos. What do we got going today?
Well, last week we did, if I can remember correctly, I want to say wheels, tires, accessories, lighting. I don't know. We covered a lot.
We did a bunch, yeah.
But what I don't remember us covering, bumpers, armors, fenders, skid plates, stuff like that. Axles, but I would love to talk about and see, maybe not make it so Jeep centric, but just talk about some other brands for maybe Tacoma or just Toyotas in general. Some of the new Chevy stuff. I know there are multiple brands pushing for those vehicle platforms as well, so I want to give them some love. And then we'll get into our, we've got an awesome bunch of mailbag questions too, so we'll get into that later.
A little bit of an extended mailbag today.
For Doug and Caleb's picks, let's kick this off with bumpers, armor, fender, skid plates.
So body armor type stuff.
Yeah, body armor, exterior type of stuff.
I mean, obviously, I'm a fan of. I've got a couple that are my personal favorites that I've used. I know, I understand them. Obviously, Next Venture Motorsports being kind of at the top of the pile there. I mean, now on the 4xe, it's got front bumper, rear bumper, sliders, skid plates, fenders, inner and outer. And then, of course, the most powerful thing, a couple of Next Venture logos. It's just super stout stuff. I mean, it's race proven. I've got a lot of their stuff. I've got all that stuff on $46.99. Obviously, I don't have their skid plates because it's not a factory underbelly. They don't fit. But I do have their corner armor. I do have it's basically the same sliders, the same bumpers that are on $46.99 are on the 4xe. Obviously, the ones on the 4xe are a little prettier. They're not as scuffed up yet, although they won't ever be as bad as $46.99 is.
I'd hope not.
And they have a full suite, man. They have other stuff. They've got other stuff, but they, I've pretty much got the vast majority of the catalog on the 4xe. So I know that stuff. I love it. I really like the fenders because in the JL, it's very hard to find a fender that looks better than the factory shaved.
Correct.
They did a really, really good job on that. And what Next Venture was able to do with their aluminum and their processes and their designing and engineering, they were able to kind of mimic that to an extent with some minor changes for what it is and do that OE style look with an aluminum fender.
It's pretty awesome.
With not an excessive amount of weld lines. It's pretty good what they were able to do. It's impressive. It really is what it is. So that is a big thing for me. Oh,
yeah.
But yeah, kind of. But you see like aluminum with compound bends. It's pretty impressive. And not a lot of people out there doing it that aren't, there's a couple people doing it in like, composite and plastic, but Next Venture is really the only one doing it like that. Also, I'm a big fan of Moto-Built. Love what they're doing with their bumpers. That frame chop bumper they got is pretty legit. And Next Venture has one of those too. But I really like the frame chop bumper that Moto-Built's got. I love the Moto-Built roll cage for the JL. Yeah. It's freaking sweet. Rock Solid's got a good one too, but I just think the Moto-Built one for my personal, I love it. I don't know that this has been said in public yet, but it's pretty much a 90% certainty that Reaper is getting a Moto-Built cage in the near future.
It's been hard to keep
JL
that quiet
down there right now getting a cage, probably getting a cage. It's also getting axles and long arms and a bunch of other stuff. But the word was if he was going to order one cage, he was just going to order two. And it is the Moto-Built because Ryan agrees with me on that Moto-Built cage. It's pretty slick.
It is.
Functionality-wise, I think Rock Solid probably gets the nod there, but for me, just what it looks like, I love the Moto-Built. And then I think otherwise armor, I know they've fallen off a couple years on the market, but Artec is still a big one for me. They're still doing some Toyota stuff. They're still doing a bunch of Jeep stuff. They're doing good stuff. And then maybe Toyota-specific C4 is always kind of my top, and Victory 4x4 for the Toyota market. And they're getting into Victory's getting into some other stuff besides Toyota too, and so is C4. So on your non-Jeep front would be Victory 4x4 and C4. Artec kind of hybrid between the two, and then Next Venture and Moto-Built. Now, that's not to say there's not a ton of other great armor companies out there. There is. Generate makes some good stuff, but I'm just saying for me, what I've used, what I have personal experience with, there was some Moto-Built stuff that came off the 4xe to put the Next Venture stuff on there when I personally purchased that product. So I think all the fenders and stuff were moto built, and that came off in favor of the Next Venture Motorsports, mainly because of that marketing partnership there. But nothing wrong with that moto built stuff. So that's my 2 Jeep, my 2 Toyota, and then my 1 hybrid. What say you?
Nice. Man, this is tough for me because I've got experience with several companies, and I've worked for a couple companies too, so I got to see kind of behind the scenes. For those who don't know, JCR and Victory 4x4 under the same rooftop. They're just sister companies to the same brand. I got to work for JCR for a number of years. I really liked seeing the behind the scenes and how they manufacture their product, which is pretty cool. But I think for me personally, the nod's going to go to CAFAB. That's what the LJ is wrapped in. I helped Donovan design and mock up and measure and brought the LJ to him a couple times. So a lot of those products were modeled off of my LJ. And there's actually some more new product coming out.
Another great American company.
Today's Friday, so by early next week, there are going to be some stretch corners and possibly boat side rockers coming out for the LJ.
Donovan.
Yeah, Donovan's staying very, very busy out in Chattanooga. But I've personally seen his shop as well. Seen his quality welds are just awesome, and which I think is hilarious is that his wife can weld almost just as well as him. So.
Correction, sir. She does it all better than him. Let's just be honest.
Lindsay, if you ever hear this, hats off to you, girl.
The problem is Donovan's like 9.5 feet tall, and it's a little gangly, man. It's a little hard. He's got to have like raised tables and everything. It's hilarious, but no, Lindsay, she's legit, man.
Yeah,
Linz, I think is he calls her. So.
But yeah, so CAFAB's gonna get my nod to my number 1 pick just because the LJ is wrapped in their stuff. I've bought everything they've come out with, and if I were to run a spare tire, Donovan has developed probably the most stout spare tire carrier for a TJ LJ that I've seen. But like you said, you've said, the Motobuilt, love them. Dan is doing a ton of awesome things, and bringing a lot of really cool products to every platform really, from the bob bed on the Gladiators, which is pretty innovative, to even resurrecting TJ, LJ, YJ stuff. And you look at El Jefe that they just built. It's a YJ that's stretched like an LJ with 43s and nasty 6.6 liter LS. Like, it's incredible, and they've just figured out how to bring products to market to build some really, really badass stuff.
It is nasty. Yeah, they're doing good stuff.
And then I would say, I think I'm agree with you on Next Venture as well. Having the opportunity to meet Dan, another Dan, and then Outlaw as a brand, building that relationship with them. I've gotten to see a lot of really cool product from them. We've gotten to pick their brain on the podcast. So I definitely want to throw them a little shout out. They're doing some cool stuff. I hope to see TJLJ stuff in the future from them just because I'm very biased. But overall, super cool stuff. Looks great. Another great American company. For non-Jeep stuff, I'm not super versed in that world. So I think I'm going to leave that up to you. The one I'm really just familiar with is Victory. So I don't want to lean that way just because you said that.
Their stuff just looks so good. It's so cool.
Yeah, no. They've really great stuff, and you can't really go wrong with it. They're up in Michigan. I know you hate Michigan, but besides that fact, Victory is great. So I'm not super versed in non-Jeep bumpers and armor, so I'm going to leave that one on you. I'm going to have my opinion off to the side. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to see more American companies pop up and create some really cool stuff. Design and innovation technologies.
Investment companies
do what?
And not get bought by investment companies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, 100% see them running on their own without giant capital firms buying them. I mean, honestly, anytime that we can see new innovative products pop out of an American-made shop, like I'm going to help support that any way I can, especially over brands that favor eBay, Amazon, or just selling out entirely. So, and moving on from that, I've got picks for axles. That's one we didn't talk about last week either.
Oh, axles. Okay.
And under axles, I guess we can also include axle shafts, gears, lockers, anything to do with those things. We make this whole drivetrain, actually.
Okay. I mean, for me, if we're going underneath and we're going to that mechanical thing, let's start as we're leaving the transfer case, right? We're going to go drive shafts down to axles, and then we're going to go into gears and axle shafts, and then stuff like that. So for me, and I know they're not the only company out there, but I've just dealt with Adams and have known James for a good number of years now, and all those guys out there. I've been to the shop, I've seen their production, I know what goes into it. I've seen where they store their bearings and their joints, and I've watched the balance machines, and that's Adams Drive Shaft and Off-Road out of Henderson, Nevada, basically Las Vegas. Just say Vegas. They're right outside of Vegas. I just don't have any issues with them. They're on the race car. They're on the 4xe. One of them's already on the 4xe. I have the other one. To still put on the 4xe. Actually, maybe if they're doing it right now. It was on the checklist. We'll see if they have time not to do it. We've as an Outlaw, we've probably sold thousands. It's just so many. And we've never
that
really.
Number is not an exaggeration either.
It can't be.
It probably is thousands.
Yeah, it's got to be. We're just so good with them. We just don't have any issues out of them. And when we've had, on the rare occasion that we've had to have a warranty issue on one, you break one, you twist one, whatever, they've just always been there, to give that support. So I know a lot of people like Tom Woods. I'm sure it's a great company. I don't have any experience. I don't really have any experience with them. I've never had the need to kind of traipse outside of Adams, because they're who I picked years and years and years ago, and that's who we've stuck with, both to selling to customers on my personal rigs, on the race car. I don't have any issue there. And then moving down to axles, there's obviously not a ton of axle companies out there, but I'd say for me, based on just what they have available, what you can do with them, how they're built, what they put in them, what you can customize, all that kind of stuff. For a whole lot of reasons, I'm still going to go with Curry. There's a reason that I picked Curry for the race car. They did not pick me. They did not come biting down my door and be like, hey, let me throw some axles in. No, I reached out to them and solicited them for the axles for $46.99, and will probably use their axles. If I switch axles, I will use their axles. I just don't know if I'm going to switch them yet in the 4xe. Now that I know I twisted an axle shaft in Moab, that decision probably just got made for me. Mm-hmm. But hey, these things happen. And it would be Curry. It just would be Curry there for the axles, just based on a whole lot of things. Wall thickness, just everything. I really, really like what they're doing out there, especially since Casey's kind of taken the reins there in the last few years to really make that his thing. I like Curry. And then for axle shafts, obviously RCV is a top pick, and Revolution Gear and Axle would be picks for me over, obviously there's custom stuff you can do out there. Curry Custom makes some of their stuff, but as far as companies that you and I would know, everybody would know listening or watching, would be RCV, and which is RCVs is what's in the race car, and then Revolution, which is now what's going in the 4xe in the rear, and then it is RCVs in the front. I think we put RCVs in there. I think they may still. Again, there's so many things. There's PSC on the checklist. It hasn't been installed yet. There's Armor Light on the check. We just haven't had time to do it. Right. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of parts up there. I'm not caught up on what's all installed, what they're trying to do. They may be surprising me right now. So there's a pallet up there with stuff on it. There's just, we got to get at, who knows? So yeah, I think for that. And then, that's about as far as I'd go. I'd say, from drive shafts, axles, and then axle shafts and gears. That's kind of the thing. Everybody knows Dana and the JLJT. They just fit. But I put Revolution right up there with them. And then I haven't been a fan of Yukon and the JLJT, but I have no issues with Yukon and the older Jeeps and other stuff, truck stuff like that. They're great. But I still kind of put Revolution and Dana at the top for gears, and then Revolution and RCV for axle shafts.
Okay. So for moving down that same list for me, starting with drive shafts, I hate agreeing with you just to agree with you, but Adams is super hard to beat when it comes to drive shafts.
Hey man, when I'm right,
when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have a failure, if you even have a failure, and you call them and they're like, "Hey, cool, no problem, we got you," and they can get parts out to you in the middle of nowhere. They've become a household name in the off-road industry, really. I will say that I do have a close second. I really do like working with Carolina Driveline out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. Actually, very close to the new Outlaw shop. I've talked to their guys a couple times. I've ran their drive shafts on previous builds. The JK action truck that I built on 40s. I used Carolina drive lines on them. Never had a failure with them, and I put that JK through some horrible spots. So both companies super easy to deal with. Both were on top of their customer service game, and obviously very fair pricing. And like you said, there are plenty of other drive shaft companies out there: Tom Woods, J.E. Reel, Oliver's, and probably 3 or 4 more across the country. We just don't have experience with them as much to give them really that full nod of approval. Not to say that they're bad or good, but maybe we can just have some experience at some point. But right now it's just really hard to beat our top picks. And this is why it's our top pick. Right. Moving down the list for axles. I've actually never used Curry axles, but I do know how stout they are just from industry presence and racing. I do also like the Fusion fabbed axles. Those are pretty sick. All of them are better than the route that I went. Let's just be honest. I went junkyard. So the Forbes welding and fabrication.
Forbes fab. Hey man, there's probably more junkyard swap axle builds out there than there are. I bought custom fabbed Curry's, Dynatracs, Fusion.
Yeah, there probably are.
Because it's money is money.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad I've gotten the experience to do that, so I can at least talk in depth with somebody about a junkyard axle swap. It's not the easiest thing, and if you're not doing all the work yourself, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you can weld yourself and you have the ability to, or you want to learn how to do these things in your garage, it's a great way to go. They do have their downfalls, but at the same time, you get a lot of experience out of it. I'm excited to have 8 lug axles under a Jeep, regardless.
Exactly.
That 8 lugs is better than 5 lugs any day. So I will still take it. I'll take it as a learning experience. But if I had to do anything else on the LJ, I would be very, very hard pressed to not have some kind of fabricated axle housing underneath them. Just for the sheer strength.
I love fabs.
And
Reaper's
weight.
Got fabs. I wanted fabs under the race car, but Casey and Garrett at Curry were like, no, from a marketing standpoint, we want to sell these 70s. So I got 70s, but my heart is in a fabricated housing.
Yeah,
sure.
They're pretty badass.
Spider Tracks, TubeWorks, Curry, they're all freaking
super, super, super nice.
I mean, TubeWorks, not a bad way to drop $60K.
No, if you want some trophy truck axles.
74 weld. Let's get some portals under your Bronco, bud. Those things are sweet. I mean, I'm seeing more and more portals. 74 weld, obviously, for me, the way to go there. Most people watching this aren't going to know what I'm talking about, but 74 weld they make portals. They make portals for Jeeps. They make portals for Broncos. That's your portals, people, and it's good quality, solid stuff. And they make some pretty slick stuff. I think they've even got some stuff now with like CTIS, central inflation system, and stuff like that in there. Wow. Yeah. Then you get into crazy stuff. They've
been kicking it up the last couple of years for sure.
Oh yeah. When because they've always they're in all the Broncos, even Rance's non-factory built, non-Geyser brother built Bronco has 74 weld portals in it. So great company, great people there. That's your stuff for the IFS type stuff, especially. They hit that game hard. But they also have portals for Jeeps too, and of course portals being the way to get net ground clearance without a lift. That's why fit 40s with a 2-inch lift, because you're moving, everything goes up. It's the only way. Yep. Portals is really the only way you're going to get net ground clearance, and by net ground clearance, axle tube differential, all that good stuff. So that's where
all
I'd
the
go
things.
That's where I'd go for.
That would be a good conversation for a future podcast of like portals versus tire size versus lift kit. If you were to start fresh with a build and have your choice of everything right now to build a dream rig, like how would you go about doing that? Because I think that would look a lot different now than it did even just 3-4 years ago.
Absolutely. 5 years ago in a Jeep, you're like, portals, whatever. That's IFS. And now you're like, that's gotta be
that's kind of sick.
Price is still a thing. You gotta, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's options. So
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So that's where we are on Driveline.
Yeah, I think that's it for our top picks. If anyone has recommendations on what they want to know what our picks are for other pieces, for any other accessories or anything like that, drop a comment below. We would love to have the interaction with you and give you our opinion and maybe steer you in the direction. Obviously, if you want to give out a little shout out to Outlaw, if you are building something in the southeast of the United States, and you want some pretty professional people to build that rig for you, whether that's a Toyota, whether that's a Jeep, whether that's a Bronco, whether that's a race car, give Outlaw a call because we could definitely help you out with that. Our guys are pretty knowledgeable in everything that we've talked about, and might even have some different recommendations that Doug and I have talked about, which is totally fine. But moving on from that plug, I want to get into some of these.
Is it mailbag time?
It's mailbag time.
Yes.
Especially this first comment, man. Like I was
haterade, baby.
When I saw this. So this is under the Outlaw Offroad video for the steering stabilizers, more specifically the dual steering stabilizers and why they suck.
That's gotten me personally a lot of hate. People like
it really
they
has.
are very defensive.
It's
of
a
their
sensitive
dual steering
subject.
Stabilizers and just their steering stabilizers in general, which is fine. But geez, people, lay off, man.
But the comment though, and I want you to address this. The comment was, this guy should be a blue politician. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. He's a blue politician. I assume he means because I kind of equivocate a little bit on some things. And I do that in a lot of videos, though. Like, there's not just black and white in this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and if that makes me political, yeah, probably. I mean, it probably does. But yeah, sometimes without knowing a person's specific situation, what their build is, sometimes what their budget, all those, without answering all those questions, it's very hard to get on a YouTube video and just go, hey, it's black and white, this is the way it is, and everything else sucks. And because it's really not true. If I say AB for this person, CD may work for that. Like, you can't. You almost kind of have to equivocate until you know specifics. Now, once I know specifics, I can make a recommendation, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I need to know specifics, and it's hard for me to get out here and talk to thousands of people because thousands of people means thousands of unique situations, thousands of unique vehicles, builds, and you can't really just go on there and say, well, this is how it is. That's why you'll hear me go, well, this is my top pick, but there's also a lot of other great companies, because it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what I say about dual steering stabilizers. Yeah, I don't like dual steering stabilizers, but I will say I know the point behind them, or the original point. Now the point is mostly looks, but I know why people originally went with opposing steering stabilizers. Doesn't mean I like them, but I guess that makes me kind of political because I'm trying to please everybody, but it's like Michael Jordan said, everybody buys shoes. Republicans buy shoes too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't mind pissing off some duck people, like the hardcore duckers. I don't mind pissing them off. I don't mind pissing off the hardcore light bar people like that. Those people need to be talked to a little bit. But by and large, the vast majority of the industry is, I'll give some recommendations and we'll talk about it. But it's given, some of it too is just giving information, and then the individual has to do with that information. It's up to them. We're all adults here.
Right.
Absolutely. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So that makes me a politician.
Nah, I don't think so. And honestly, if we shoehorned ourselves into one position and one position only, that would make us a pretty terrible shop and reliable source of information.
Well, then they would talk crap to me about that too. Then,
yeah. Well,
you're always so rigid. Well, what one do you want, bud?
Which one do you want, buddy? Yeah. I just thought that was a funny comment.
I love the hate. Hey,
sometimes,
at least you took the time to make the comment. Appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for engaging on the video and boosting.
You watched, you watched. So thank you for that. You may not have liked watching towards the end. You wanted to type that comment in real fast, but thanks for watching anyway.
I mean, we're not one of those channels, but there are certainly channels out there that on purpose give incorrect information or start a fire just to see who will kick that and pour some gasoline on it, and then it lights up in the comments and does exactly what they want.
Bingo.
We're not one of those, so we do welcome the engagement though. All right, moving on. This one's an actual question and not not a statement.
Hey, just so we're extended, I've got two, I think. Yeah, I've got two. I've got 2. So does that give you got how many? You got 3. We got 5 today. We normally only do 2 or 3.
Yeah, I've got.
You want me to
5
jump
total.
in here? I've got one here. I've got one ready.
Go ahead and hit me with one. Yeah.
So all right. So this was from the Jeep Gladiators group, and our good friend at RPM Steering, Don Wyckoff, actually answered this one. I'll give you 3 guesses as to how he answered it, but you're only going to need one. So the question is, so I was looking at building a long arm for my Gladiator, and after looking at my tank placement, long, skinny driver's side, or passenger side next to the drive shaft, between the drive shaft and the frame, it seems like I wouldn't be able to triangulate the rear. So I was looking and found this mid-arm kit, which is basically just stock length, and was wondering if anyone had experience with it. I was debating buying the rear kit and then building my own 3-link long arm for the front. Input and thoughts are welcome. Just trying to decide which route to go. I'm going to eventually put tons under it also. And he's got a picture of the Rusty's Offroad kind of like hybrid weirdness. I'm not a huge fan of this kit for a whole lot of reasons. I won't go into it. Simple answer is yes, you can absolutely triangulate a Gladiator. You can absolutely 3-link long arm the rear of a Gladiator. Up front, you can do whatever the heck you want because it's a JL.
Yeah.
From the B pillar forward, that sucker's a JL. So anything that works in the front of a JL works in the front of a Gladiator, with some slight modification needed to some holes and whatnot if you're working on a Mojave. But you can absolutely long arm the rear of a Gladiator. Rock Crawler has a kit. I actually answered this question and linked one kit. Rock Crawler has a kit that can be, they have a silverback kit, which is long arm front. It's still technically mid-arm rear, but it changes some mounts and triangulates the rear and deletes the track bar. And then they have a long arm 3-link, which keeps the track bar, but gives you a 3-link long arm. Just because the tank's there does not do that. They develop this stuff with that in mind. And actually the LCAs, the lower control arms, get mounted outboard of the frame and tucked up on the long arm with their X2 geometry, which actually increases your ground clearance on those rock grabbers, those control arms, which is pretty innovative there. I don't think anybody was really doing it at the time they put it out. Now there's a couple doing it, but Rock Crawler I think was the first. I think RPM's doing that now. There's a couple other companies doing it now, but Rock Crawler I think was kind of the innovator there. So yes, you can absolutely long arm a Gladiator front and rear, and you can also triangulate the rear, which is obviously counterintuitive to a 3-link because triangulate you have to have 4 links. So you can do both. Rock Crawler's got the 3-link, Rock Crawler's got the triangulated. I think RPM's got it. I think Evo even has something for that.
I would say yes.
Yeah, and I think Rusty's had something. They have their mounts are weird. It's like an integrated, it's a weird deal. They do have a kit, and Rusty's is generally less expensive. It's not Rock Crawler type quality, but it is going to give you something to have that's lower price point. Not super familiar with them. We don't sell a lot of it. It's just not a thing in our world. So, but you can absolutely, to answer your question, Mr. Caleb, your other Caleb Brent. Yes, you can absolutely long arm, and you can absolutely triangulate the rear of a Gladiator. So,
yeah,
there we
absolutely. Go. And a triangulated Gladiator travels a lot. It does very, very well.
Yeah, that's what the 392 was. The 392 was that kit. It was a long arm front and then triangulated rear with the track bar removed, and we welded on the bridge to make it be able to off-road. It didn't off-road much, but we had it that setup.
Sure as hell drove great, though. I got a chance to drive that for a little while, and I was super happy driving that around. Yeah. Cool. So my question on that comes from the counterpart to that group, which is the Wrangler JL group. This person said, I really need new tires. I would really like the KO3s, but they are not released in a 245/75/17 yet. I'm stuck between the Falcon Wild Peak ATs, KO2s, and a Nitto Ridge Grappler. I drive a lot, roughly 65 miles a day on the highway. Want something that looks aggressive while getting good gas mileage and isn't loud. So give me your thoughts.
If they're stuck on the KO3, just go to the KO2. Like if you're buying it for looks, then you're probably just going to do the KO2. I know the KO3 is released, but he's looking at a factory size. If you're set on the KO3, find a size that you can fit and put it on there. Like if you're in a Jeep, you're in a Wrangler, you've got some availability there to change the size.
Oh, absolutely.
So that would be my first recommendation. If you're set on the KO3, not a bad tire at all, then find it in a size that'll fit your wheel and will work with your scrub radius and all that, and just buy that. You will not be disappointed with Falcon, whether you do the AT3 or the AT4. Great, great, great tires. I've been to Falcon. I know that company well. I run Falcon AT4s on the wife's lifted expedition. She has told me countless times, this thing doesn't ride any different than it did when it was factory. Like I wouldn't know that this thing is lifted. That's high praise. Ridge Grappler, again, great tire. Very, very, very popular tire. It is a little more aggressive. I would not compare that to a KO3 or a Wild Peak AT, just because the RT is more of a rugged terrain. It's just as much MT as it is AT. If you're talking AT, you got to be looking Recon Grappler, or even kind of, especially if you're in the KO and the Falcon Wild Peak, you got to look at that new Terra Grappler G3.
Oh yeah,
those are the
absolutely.
Two. The Ridge Grappler is better off road. The knock on the Ridge Grappler is it tends to have some funny wear patterns at the end of its life, but we're talking 45, 50,000 miles.
If
the
not
same can be
more.
said for the KO2. Gets the same knock.
Yeah.
Gets the same knock.
Yeah.
The Falcon kind of doesn't. I think the Falcon's a little quieter, but is not the off-road performer that the Nitto is. But again, when you're comparing those, the Recon Grappler, the Terra G3, the Falcon Wild Peak AT3 or AT4, and that KO2, KO3, you're not going to be dissatisfied with any of those.
No, they're all
you just
solid
reeled
picks.
off the top tires in the world for going, for being an all-terrain tire. So I say it that, then it comes down to, can you find one of those on sale? And what do you like the aesthetics of more, right?
Yeah.
You are not going to be dissatisfied with any of those picks.
No, I
Not even
100%
close.
agree.
Yeah.
And I'm normally a pretty big proponent of Mickey Thompson and Nitto, but I think on that one, I would be very hard pressed not to run the Falcons, just because I know how quiet they are. And how,
man.
Yeah. And in that size, in a 245, 75, 17, like that's, if that is bigger than factory, it's not much bigger. So you're pretty much doing a factory replacement. So I don't think you're going to be doing anything hardcore in it. So those Falcons are they're great in the snow.
That's a
they're
stock size on a Sport, I think.
Okay.
That's the 17. Yeah, that flat black steel wheel they got.
Yeah.
That's a Sport or Sport S. And I'm with you. I would definitely go Baja Boss AT. It's a great tire. I love that tire. But I'm assuming there's a reason he's not looking at it. I assume maybe he doesn't like the looks of it or something.
Yeah.
Because tire tread patterns, man, it can be very subjective.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
I love the way the BFG tread patterns look. My only knock on BFG has been I just wish they measured. Like it's literally just that simple for me. And it's not really that big of a deal to most people. In some cases, when you're really tight on tires, you're like, let's put a BFG on there so it'll clear. Like it's just that it's just that much. They're a good tire. Again, the knock on BFG would be kind of what I said about the Nitto. They tend to where you've got to really stay on top of alignments and all that. If you don't maintain, you're gonna pay the price. But I think that's any tire. Some tires are a little more forgiving. I do think the Falcon is a little more forgiving in that area. I do think the Mickey is a little more forgiving in that area. Nitto and BFG tend not to be as forgiving, but they're going to be your better off-road performers, generally speaking. But yeah, hard to find a quieter one than the Falcon Wild Peak AT, either 304 or that Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT. But yeah, I think my first thing would just be to get a little bit bigger tire. Go to a size they have released if you can, and just throw that on there and be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want the KO3. Find a way to make it work.
Even if it's just like a 33, I mean, it's still going to look pretty aggressive and look.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Fit, no problem. So what's you got another one, right?
I do. I have one more. This one comes from Chris Cohen in NC Gladiators, a local gladiator group. I'm on the Gladiators today. You never know. I sell a gladiator and I get a bunch of gladiator questions. But a lot of this stuff applies, the last gladiator question, half of it applies to JL. So yes, you can also triangulate a JL, and yes, you can also, you can do that. It's a little easier to triangulate in a gladiator. You're going to be doing some weird stuff in a Wrangler. Rockzilla to get it triangulated. A lot more work, a lot more cutting. Yeah. Okay, guys. Mr. Chris Cohen says, okay, guys, I got another question. 24 Gladiator, 1,600 miles. I got new wheels and tires a few weeks back. I kind of felt maybe the Jeep was sluggish, maybe. It felt heavy is how I'm trying to describe it. This is my first Jeep, so there's some unfamiliarity here. So just getting out of the Jeep just now, I noticed brake dust on one wheel while the other seemed pretty clean. No lights or anything on like that. Any suggestion other than take it to the dealership, which I will more than likely do anyway unless there's something I can do myself. Also, coming from a GMC Canyon, my gauges read quite different. Are these numbers looking legit to you at all? I've seen the trans tip go into the high 190s. Also, this was 6 a.m., blah, 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 blah. He posted a picture of some gauges. His temperatures are fine. Let's just tell you that. Mr. Chris Cohen, your temperatures are fine. Let's talk about that sluggish. A couple of reasons that can happen. Generally, if you went bigger, you're going to feel sluggish because of the gearing. It does not sound, he does not say he went bigger, and he only made reference to one wheel. Generally speaking, if you get it feeling sluggish and you see brake dust, excessive brake dust on one wheel, you generally have a sticking or pulling brake caliper, that is constantly applying at least some brake pressure to one of the calipers, and it is causing that slow, sluggish feel. I felt that last year at Crandon when my brakes were basically on fire and they were stuck, sticky, and it felt like I was racing with a motorhome behind me. I felt like I was pulling a trailer. That was the feeling I had, and that was my brakes grabbing. Now, it was mostly left, but the right was the left one's actually what caught on fire. But the right was sticking too, and I felt that, and I knew that. And sometimes you can tell just by if it kind of pulls one way, it might pull to the right front of that right. But sometimes it's just enough to where you're just feeling a little bit of that sluggishness. I don't think that has anything to do with your wheels and tires. It shouldn't. Your brakes don't really get touched during having wheels and tires put on. So I wouldn't jump out and blame the shop for that. Unless they were in there doing brake work or something, who knows. The 1,600-mile thing is a little weird, so that's probably going to be a warranty issue. Just be aware of the dealers. You know how dealers are. Some dealers just try to make it difficult. So just be ready to say, no, Magnus and Moss, you can't say my wheels and tires cause this. So not saying they will do that. Some dealerships are cool. But it sounds like it's just a sticking caliper issue. Very common issue. Obviously not as common on a newer vehicle, but it can happen. I've experienced that myself more times than I remember. It's a thing. And that would explain your brake dust. That would also explain your sluggishness, and you're just feeling like you're kind of drugged down. So that would be the first thing. Assuming, since you didn't say you went bigger, I'm assuming you didn't go bigger. And then mentioning just the excessive brake dust on one wheel makes me think sticking brake caliper. So I would start with the brake caliper.
I agree. So it sounds like...
Yeah, you better.
Brakes are not my forte, but no, it definitely sounds like something is going on there.
I kept my, for whatever reason, I kept my ASE A5 certification for 15 years, I guess. There was no reason for me to do that. But I was at one time, I had A5, which is brakes. I had A4, which was steering and suspension. I had A8, which was engine performance. I had C1, which was service consulting. I had G1, which was maintenance and light repair. And I had P2, which was certified part specialist.
Nice.
Talk about, I mean, it was like every 6 months, I was like, good Lord, I got to take another research test. Good Lord, I got to take another research test. But you get into these research tests, and at some point, it's just going into this test center, and you just go, yep, I already know this, I already know this. And then you maintain.
Right.
I used to wear a patch on one of my work shirts when I actually worked out in the shop that had my ASEs on it. And I decorated my sleeve up in the day. Back 10, 15 years ago, I would go to work with a decorated sleeve, and then I realized half the people out there don't even know what ASE certification is anymore. So I think 21 or 22. During COVID, I never renewed anything, and I was like, I'm not even in the shops mostly anymore. What I need to be certified in is putting out fires and helping people with their business. So there's not a patch for that. Not a patch for that. So yeah,
no, I can design one though.
But I mean, brake systems are brake systems. Steering and suspension is steering and suspension. That not much has changed there. So if you know it, if you know it, you know it, and that's what definitely makes the most sense to me.
Yep. So. Well, I've got one more before we end off the show on a pretty good note. This one also from Wrangler JL. I'm having a really hard time with death wobble and my tires getting chopped. Took it to the local off-road shop. They tightened a few bolts and found a crack in the bracket that holds the steering wheel stabilizer to the axle. It does have fixed control arms with drop-down brackets, so the caster can't be corrected. I really want to go adjustable control arms so I can get a more precise alignment, but I can't decide if I want to do just the front or front and rear. Can anyone talk me through and give me some insight? This is something we've actually covered on this podcast before of control arms and
after it.
Yeah.
That I would encourage you to go watch. It's the Do You Need All 8 Control Arms episode.
Yes.
First of all, let's talk about the potential safety issue you've got going on here with a crack in the bracket where the steering stabilizer hits the axle. Because now, if that's the factory bracket on a JL, that's just its own bracket and it's cracked, who cares? Whatever. It might break. Who cares? You lose a steering stabilizer, you're going to hear a clunk. If that thing has been relocated, if you have aftermarket steering and it's cracked on that bracket, that's a track bar bracket. Stop driving.
Yeah.
That's bad. If you ever notice, and that could cause the death wobble. Now, I'm assuming it's just an OE bracket because he took it to a shop, they tightened some stuff up, death wobble, it appears, went away. And I don't think the real question is about the death wobble. I think the real question here is about the arms. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I know Metal Cloak does this differently. They start with front uppers. Almost everybody else starts with front lowers. There's generally 3 stages. Most companies have taken this down to 2. Stage 1 would be front control arms, adjustable front control arms, because you're getting the length. Because I always do the napkin test. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this right now. If you put a napkin down on the table and you put the center of it in there and you pull the napkin up from the middle, what happens to the outside? It goes, whoop, it comes in. Axles are the edge of that napkin or the edge of that piece of paper in this analogy. They rotate in and up. So that is going to reduce your caster angle. That is the front to back turn of the axle. If you lift it 2.5 degrees, it's probably going to drop it by 2 to 2.5 degrees. And you're going to feel that when you drive. So geo brackets are kind of the cheaper, easier way to do that. They change the mount point down to where you still want that. In a JL, it's 24 inches. Instead of having to go with something that's like 24 1/4, 24 5/16, 24 3/8, whatever, depending on your lift height, it makes a difference. 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch makes a difference. So generally, what I would call the base level of a complete kit will do something to address front caster. Now, that doesn't address rear pinion. Generally, at that lift height, it's not that big of a deal. At 2.5, even to 3.5 is when you start looking at it. But again, you're doing the same thing. You're rotating that axle. So the rear uppers are generally the quickest, easiest way to adjust rear pinion. That's the pinion angle. We don't care about caster. There's no steering back there, but we do care about pinion, which is basically if I take the pinion pointing out the front of that differential, and I want as straight a line as I can get pointing at that transfer case. Pinion being off it's like this or it's like this, or it's not flat. It's not a flat line. We don't want it like this or this. We want it like this. So pinion being that kind of zeroed in, that's what we want. Rear uppers can do that. After 4, you jump right to 8, because at 8 we're addressing caster, but we're not addressing the pulling in. We're only addressing the rotation. Mm-hmm. At 4, now we're still addressing the pulling in on the front and the pulling in on the rear, but we're still not addressing the actual shrinking of the wheelbase. We're only addressing the turning of the axle itself. When I get all 8 arms, I can now address all of those problems. I can address caster up front. I can address pinion angle out back, but I can also make everything on its own back to the original length, the original wheelbase. 118, I think 118 point whatever, 118.2, 100 on the JL, 108. We'll just call it 118 inches. When you're lifting it and you're not addressing those, you're actually shortening the wheelbase, which causes its own issues. But with all 8 arms, you've now created that. You can even stretch it a half inch or an inch or so. In some cases, you can do that. So that's why you would do 2. That's why you would do 4, and that's why you would do 8. There's really no point in doing 6. I'm not Rock Crawler actually used to have a level in the middle. They called it the 2, which would do 4. Most companies now, I think Terraflex does it, JKS does it. About half the companies who used to do 2, 4, 8 now only do 2, 8.
Yeah.
There's a jump. Now, not to say you couldn't buy the 2. I have customers that do that all the time. Control arms make great Christmas presents, so we can start them out with the 4, and then, maybe they can ask their husband or wife for an anniversary gift or, Valentine's or whatever, Christmas, Kwanzaa gifts, Hanukkah, whatever, 4th of July, Independence Day, Chinese New Year. Control arms for Chinese New Year. It's all good. So, yeah, I would, look at it that way. It's 2, it's 4, it's 8. 4 would just kind of be in certain circumstances, but 2 and 8, and that's what you're getting. You got to address the turning of the axle, identified as caster on the front, pinion on the rear, and then wheelbase being the that napkin trick, the pulling in and shrinking that wheelbase. So there you go. Has nothing to do with the stabilizer part of the question.
No. We're going to overlook that, and hopefully that is not.
I don't know how A met B there. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully that's not a cracked track bar bracket. But
God,
just to answer the question on the control arms, yeah, that's what I would do as well. But that is all the mailbag I have for you today, even though that was extended. That is it.
Yeah, that was a good one. I like that. We had to address some of the. I love it when people send the haterade. Maybe he just typed that comment because he saw the last episode we did, and he's like, "I'm going to see if I get on the episode." And you know what? Congratulations, bro. You did.
Hey, you did it.
You did. You did. You got on the episode. So, all right. Well, that is where we are gonna leave it. I know everybody's listening to this while it's Jeep Invasion, but I have not left for Jeep Invasion yet because obviously we filmed these before. I have got to go back to the Jeep and get this thing finished. I got to get out of town. I got to get to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I got to go see all of my off-road industry and peoples. Some people I don't get to see very often. So I'm going to go see some Outlaws. I'm going to go see some people. I know I get to go see some rock crawler people. I'm going to go see some Revolution Gear and Axle people. I'm going to go see some, who else am I going to see? Some Next Venture people. I'm going to go see all the people. I'm going to see all the people. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to drive. I'm going to be a total mall crawler this week. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And that's what I'm going to do. So as always, as we do on every episode, we cannot end these episodes without thanking you guys, the listeners and the viewers, for checking us out and spending your time with us wherever you may be watching or listening, and whenever you may be watching or listening. We thank you. If this is your first time with us, thank you too. But don't forget, hit that like and subscribe. Hit that notification icon if you're checking us out on YouTube. Make sure you get that notification every time a new episode drops, which is, in general, unless craziness happens, pretty much every Friday. That is what we do. That is how we do it. So find us wherever you are. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube and YouTube Podcast. And hopefully very soon we will be on iHeartRadio. But if you ain't going to find us on one of those spots, do you even podcast, bro? Or
probably not.
Do that. You probably don't. You don't. Yeah, you don't. So, yes, that is where we are going to leave it. Caleb, I will see you next week. I will not be seeing you at Jeep Invasion, but I will see you next week here on another episode of Dirt to Dust, presented by the Outlaw Offroad. Peace out, everybody. See you guys later. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Dirt to Dust, presented by Outlaw Offroad, the premier off-road centers for Jeeps, trucks, and SUVs. Sounds a little bit arrogant, doesn't it? Oh, well. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Be sure to tell your friends about the show, too. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, to see more and to see what Outlaw Offroad offers, hit the website at theoutlawoffroad.com. See you next time. Don't follow us. You're not going to make it.